The cameras wouldn't stop flashing. I stood there in my emerald gown, watching my husband Malcolm Rivers walk into our charity gala with her hand locked in his. Simone Carter, his mistress. She wore red like a declaration of war, her smile sharp enough to cut through every vow we'd ever made. The room fell silent, then erupted in whispers. I felt every eye turn toward me, waiting for me to shatter. Malcolm didn't even glance my way. He looked at her like she'd already replaced me, like our 12 years of marriage were nothing but paperwork waiting to be shredded. I should have screamed. I should have thrown my champagne in his face. But I did something far more dangerous. I walked away. Because beneath my gown, beneath the humiliation burning through my chest, I carried a secret that would eventually destroy him. I was 8 weeks pregnant with twins, and Malcolm Rivers, the man who chose his mistress over his wife in front of 500 people, had no idea what he'd just lost. If you want to see how this billionaire's arrogance cost him everything, comment where you are watching from and hit that like button and subscribe, because this story gets darker before it gets better. I left that night with only 3 things: my mother's jewelry, my dignity, and the 2 lives growing inside me. No lawyers, no dramatic social media posts, no begging. Malcolm probably thought I'd crumbled under the shame, that I'd gone somewhere to cry myself into irrelevance. He was wrong. I disappeared because I knew exactly what kind of man I'd married. The kind who would use my children as leverage, who would twist motherhood into a custody battle designed to break me. So I vanished into a small town called Riverbank, 4 hours north, where nobody knew my maiden name and nobody cared about billionaire scandals. I worked at a local diner, my hands raw from bleach and grease, my body heavy with pregnancy. The other waitresses thought I was running from an abusive ex. They weren't entirely wrong. I gave birth to Isaiah and Micah on a rainy October morning in a county hospital, alone, except for a nurse named Rosa, who held my hand through every contraction. When I looked at their faces, Malcolm's eyes, my nose, his stubborn chin, I made a promise. They would never know the man who chose humiliation over love. They would never carry his name until he earned it. While I was learning how to change diapers with stitches still healing, Simone was rewriting history. She told Malcolm I'd been having an affair, that the pregnancy was a trap, that I'd planned to divorce him and take half his empire. She showed him doctored text messages, fake private investigator reports, even a blurry photo of me having coffee with my brother that she claimed was my lover. Malcolm, blinded by his own ego and her body, believed every word. Within 6 months, he married her in a ceremony that made international headlines. She wore white. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't destroyed me. But Simone wasn't satisfied with just becoming Mrs. Rivers. She wanted to erase me completely, scrubbing my photos from their penthouse, replacing my charities with hers, even convincing Malcolm to sell the lake house where we'd spent our honeymoon. She was building an empire on my grave, and Malcolm handed her the shovel. His business grew, his conscience shrank, and every night while Simone slept in sheets I'd once chosen, I rocked 2 babies to sleep in a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat, wondering if he ever thought about what he'd lost. Isaiah asked about his father when he turned 4. We were sitting on the floor of our tiny living room, building block towers that he'd knocked down with his chubby hands, laughing like destruction was the best game ever invented. "Mama, where's our daddy?" His voice was so innocent it cracked something inside me. I told him the truth, a version of it. "Your daddy doesn't know about you yet, but one day when you're bigger, you can decide if you want to meet him." Micah, my fierce little girl, looked up from her coloring book. "Is he mean?" "No, baby, he's just lost." They accepted that answer because children accept what their mothers tell them, especially when those mothers work double shifts and still show up to every school play, every scraped knee, every nightmare. We lived simply. Thrift store clothes, library books, birthdays celebrated with homemade cake and secondhand toys. But we had something Malcolm's money couldn't buy. We had each other, unbroken and unchained. Still, some nights I'd watch them sleep and wonder what I'd stolen from them by keeping Malcolm away. Then I'd remember the man who paraded his mistress in front of me, and the guilt would dissolve into protective fury. They deserved better than a father who chose spectacle over love. Malcolm Rivers came to Riverbank on a Tuesday in March, 7 years after I'd disappeared. He was there to finalize a development deal, luxury condos where our community gardens grew, a shopping complex where the elementary school stood. I saw his motorcade from the diner window and felt my blood turn to ice. He'd aged. Silver threaded through his temples now, and the arrogance in his posture had hardened into something colder. He walked past our diner, past the school, past the park where Isaiah and Micah were playing after their half-day. I was clearing tables when I heard it. A man's voice, sharp with recognition, then confusion. "Excuse me, son, but—" I dropped the plates. They shattered. Through the window, I saw Malcolm crouched in front of Isaiah, studying his face like he was seeing a ghost. Micah stood beside her brother, protective and wary, her hand gripping his. Malcolm's expression shifted from confusion to shock, to something that might have been grief. He looked up, scanning the street, and then his eyes locked on mine through the diner glass. For 7 years, I'd imagined this moment. In my fantasies, I was powerful, composed, untouchable. In reality, my hands shook so hard I had to grip the counter to stay standing. He stood slowly, never breaking eye contact, and I saw the exact moment recognition hit him. The woman he'd humiliated, the wife he'd erased, still alive, and standing beside 2 children who had his face. He followed me home. I didn't invite him, but Malcolm Rivers had never needed permission to take what he wanted. I put the twins in their room with snacks and tablets, telling them Mama needed to talk to a grown-up. Then I faced the man I'd once loved. They're mine. It wasn't a question. His voice cracked on the word mine, and I hated that it affected me. Biologically? Yes. In every other way? No. I showed him everything. The hospital records with his name listed as father, the genetic test I'd paid for with tip money just in case this day came, 7 years of birthday photos he'd missed. His hands trembled as he held the papers. "You told me you were leaving because you couldn't handle the pressure. You said—" I said nothing, Malcolm. Simone said I was having an affair. Simone said the pregnancy was fake. Simone said I was trying to trap you. I watched him process it. Watched his empire of lies crumble in real time. "She intercepted your messages, changed my number in your phone, told you I didn't want you at the doctor appointments. Why didn't you fight?" "Because I knew you wouldn't believe me. You'd already chosen her." The question I asked him then changed everything. If I tell them who you are, will you hurt them like you hurt me? He had no answer. And that silence told me everything. Simone found out about the twins within 48 hours. Malcolm must have confronted her because she showed up at the diner alone, dressed like she was attending a hostile takeover, which, in a way, she was. "So this is where you've been hiding." Her voice dripped with contempt. "Building a little fantasy family with my husband's money? I haven't taken a cent from him. No, you've done something worse. You've created leverage." She slid into the booth across from me, her manicured nails drumming the table. "Malcolm is sentimental right now, confused. But sentiment fades. Business doesn't. That development deal, it's going through. These condos will be built, this town will be displaced, and your children will learn that their father destroys communities for profit." "You're threatening my kids. I'm teaching them reality." She leaned forward, her perfume expensive and suffocating. "Here's what's going to happen. Malcolm will feel guilty for a few weeks, maybe even send child support. But eventually, he'll remember why he chose me, because I understand power. You understand martyrdom, and martyrs always lose." She stood, smoothing her dress. "Enjoy your diner, Naomi. You won't have it much longer." After she left, I locked myself in the storage closet and called the one person who'd helped me disappear years ago, my brother's lawyer friend. I need to fight, I told him, and I need to win. The town hall meeting was packed, 200 residents fighting for their homes against a development corporation backed by Malcolm Rivers. I stood in the back with Isaiah and Micah, my heart hammering as Malcolm took the podium. Simone sat in the front row, smiling like the outcome was already decided. Malcolm began his presentation: economic growth, job creation, progress. The same sanitized language billionaires always use to justify displacement. Then his eyes found mine, found the twins, Isaiah, who'd inherited his intensity, Micah, who had his stubborn chin. He stopped mid-sentence. The room fell silent. His voice broke. I need to make a correction. Simone's smile faltered. This development deal is canceled, effective immediately. The room erupted. Simone stood, her face twisted with fury. You can't. I can. I'm the majority shareholder. He looked at her fully now, and I saw the moment he finally understood what she was. You told me my wife was unfaithful. You told me the pregnancy was a trap. You intercepted her messages, changed her number in my phone, and fed me lies for 7 years, while I had children growing up without me. He turned to the crowd, to me, to our twins watching with wide, confused eyes. I chose spectacle over love. I chose ego over truth, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve the family I abandoned. Then Malcolm Rivers, billionaire developer, walked out of that town hall, leaving his empire, his mistress, and his arrogance behind. Redemption doesn't happen in grand gestures. It happens in school pickup lines and homework help, in learning how to braid Micah's hair after 20 YouTube tutorials, in teaching Isaiah how to ride a bike even though his hands shake with nervousness. Malcolm moved to Riverbank, not to the luxury hotel an hour away, to a modest apartment above the hardware store. He didn't demand custody or force his way into our lives. He asked. Every single day he asked permission. Can I take them to the park? Can I make them breakfast? Can I be their father? It took Isaiah 3 months to call him dad. It took Micah 6. It took me a year to let him hold my hand without flinching. We're not a fairy tale. We're complicated and messy and still healing. Malcolm sold his corporation, invested in community development instead of displacement, and learned that being present matters more than being powerful. Simone tried to sue him, tried to salvage her reputation, but the truth had already spread. The mistress who built her throne on lies ended up with nothing. Some nights, Malcolm and I sit on the porch of the house he helped us buy. Nothing extravagant, just a home with a yard big enough for the twins to play. I lost everything, he said once, watching Isaiah and Micah chase fireflies. I squeezed his hand. No, you lost your empire. You found your family. And somehow, that became enough. Thank you for watching. This is Beyond the Scripted. Please subscribe, like, and share for more interesting stories.